All right, so shall we start for today? It's 11.
Yes,
Okay, so now let me just share the presentation here. All right. So today we are going to study three topics, which are sets, tuples, and dictionary. We have covered all three of those at a very surface level, and today we are going to take a look at the functionality of all of them a little more deeply. So we first off we start with set, and let's take a look at what a set is. Okay, so a set, as you already know, is a collection of elements, and those elements can be of any data type. But the difference is that a set can only contain unique elements. Like any element inside a set cannot repeat itself. Like that's how a set works. It's the same thing as a mathematical set, like the set you study in maths and the set you will study in Python. Like the theory and the concepts are the same. And which is why, since the theory is the same, the set operations are also the same. Like in this diagram, you can see the, like, let's say we have two sets here, A and B. In the first diagram, you can see the union of them and the intersection, the difference, and the symmetric difference. Okay, is anybody here who doesn't know what these functions do? Like, if there's anyone, you can ask me and I will explain them. Otherwise, we can just move forward for now. Okay, so I'm assuming everybody already knows what a union, intersection, and the other two mean. So for now, let's just move ahead. So this is how you create a set. You take a variable name, and here I have S, and then you use round brackets, and inside the round brackets, you can separate each element of in the given set with a comma. So let's go to our IDE. Let me just open PyCharm. So this is yesterday's code. I will just remove all of this. All right. So I have my variable s is equal to, then I will enter curly brackets. And inside the curly brackets, I can type anything. Let's just take the example which is given in the presentation, which is red, green, and blue. Okay. So if I let's see if this is a set or not. So I will print the type of this variable. And when I print this, I should get a class set. And that's absolutely right. I get the class as a set. All right. Uh, and a set can also have mixed data. Like it can have elements from different data type. Like it can have a string, an integer, a float, a complex number, a boolean. It can contain everything. So, for example, I will just enter a comma here. I will enter a number 1, 2, let's say 8.4, and let's just also enter a boolean which is false. Okay. When I print this, I still get the same output, which is that this variable s is a set, which means that even though I added all these different data, which are string, integer, float, and a boolean, it still remains a set. So let's move ahead. So there are multiple elements in set, and set can be changed. Like as we have already studied, some data types can be changed after their declaration, and some cannot be changed. Set is one of those which can be changed. So let's take a look how we can add elements to a set. And the formula is very simple. Since we are adding elements to a set, we will just use the dot add method. So I have my set here. Okay, let me just remove this. Let me just move this print statement a little ahead. I will just type s dot add, and inside the add I can type, and then let's say I add the numbers 6. Okay, and instead of now printing the type s, I will just print the set itself. And when I run this, as you can see, this number 6 has been added to the set, right? this number 6 wasn't initially present inside the set, but now it has been added, and it has been added in a place where it belongs. Like it's after 2, but it's before 8.4, which means it has been added in its correct chronological order. Okay, and now since we have already seen how to add elements, let's take a look at how we remove elements. So there are 3 ways to remove elements from a set. First is the very easy remove function. Then we have the discard function, which works the exact same way as the remove function. And then we have the pop function. So since all of you already came in yesterday's class too, you know that what a pop function does. Can anybody tell me what's the functionality of the pop function?
It removes the last element of the list.
Yep, you're absolutely correct. What the pop function does is that it will take the last element of the sequence and it will just remove that. Like you don't need to mention which element want to remove. You can just type s.pop and the last element will get removed automatically. Okay, so now let's just go back to our ID and we will take a look if this actually works. So let's see s.remove, and for now we will let our 6 remain here. Or rather, since the 6 is not in our original set, we will change this to, let's say, s.remove green. Okay. And when we print this, you can see green has been removed from this sequence. That's because we just use the remove function, and that's why the element of green has been removed. And similarly, if here we have the discard function, if instead of the remove function, if we use the discard function, we should get the same output. So let's take a look. Yep, and the output is same. Green has been removed from the sequence. And finally, let's take a look at the pop function. Okay, so we will write s.pop, but instead of green, because we will not send any argument with the pop method, and so the output of this should be that let's take a look at what the output is, and then we will see what's gone from here, right? So the element of false has been removed, right? The false is the last element of this set, and since we pop the S set, the last element has been removed, which is false. Okay, so we have seen adding elements to the set, we have seen removing elements from the set, but that's not all we can do in a set. There are tons of things, and we will take a look at all of them one by one. So first there's union. Okay, for now let's go back to our diagram, right? So this is a union, intersection, difference, and
Excuse me,
symmetric
sir.
difference. Yes.
I have a doubt.
Okay.
Please go on the ID.
Yes.
सर आईडी में जो आपने सेट एंटर किया है उसका ऑर्डर अलग है और जो प्रिंट हो रहा है वो ऑर्डर अलग है.
Yep. So a set is an unordered, uh, what do you say? An unordered sequence of elements. Like inside this, since we use the pop function, in that case there is a last element, but otherwise there is no first or a last element inside a set in of itself. For example, if I try to print S1, let's see if we can print anything. As you can see, this gave us an error, right? Which means there is no oneth element of the set. So there's no first element, there's no second element, there's no third element. All of the elements exist at once. And that's why they can be in any order. That's why when you print over and over, the order can change over time. Did you get it?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Excuse me, sir.
So, yes.
Does it mean inside the pop function we don't have to write the number of any element?
No, inside the pop function, you don't need to write anything.
Okay.
Because pop already means that you are going to be removing the last element.
Okay.
Right. Okay, so let's come back to our diagram. And I will just, again, I will give a quick go through in case anybody already didn't know. If there are two sets A and B, so the union of A and B will be all the elements of A and all the elements of B. will make up a bigger set. Similarly, the intersection of A and B means that only the elements which are both in A and also in B, only those elements. And A minus B means that you will take a set A and then you will remove all the elements which are also in B, within the set A, the elements which are also in A and in B, you will remove all of them. And symmetric difference you can already see, like you will take all the elements of A, you will take all the elements of B, but you will remove the elements which are both in A and B. I think looking at the diagram is a better way to understand this instead of just reading or listening to the theory. So take a look, and now we will see how we can code this. Okay, so let me just make another set here. I will make S. I already have my set S, and I will make another set T. And let's see what the elements in T are, which are yellow, red, and orange. I have yellow, red, and orange. Okay. So what I'm going to do now is that I want to print the union of A and B. Okay, so I want to print a new set which contains all the elements of S and all the elements of T. So there are two ways of doing this. Okay, so first you can print S, and this character, I don't know what exactly this character is called, but you can see it's a straight line, and then I can write T. Okay, and let me remove this print statement. And what happens when we try to print this? You can see we have received all of the elements which are in S and in T. Okay, so this statement right here, S straight line T, this means that there's a union of S and T. This and if you have done sets in mathematics, you know this is how we also represent this function in mathematics. Okay, using this character. But we can also do this using the union method. Let's take a look at what the union method is. So we have A dot union B, and this is how we will write it for our set S and T, S dot union, and inside the brackets I will write T. So when we print this, you can see we get the same output, which is all the elements of S and all the elements of T in one big set. Okay, so this is how the union works. Any doubts until here? Did everybody understood what a union is? Okay. Okay, anybody? Can you tell me if you understood or not?
Sir, in union, letters will not repeat.
Let's take a look. Yep, you're right. See, red is here and red is also here. But in the final set, we only have one red. And that's again because set will never have any repeating elements. Right?
Okay, sir.
Yep. You can also see this in the, let me go back to the diagrams. As you can see, there's the set A and there's the set B. And you see this intersection in between where S and B are overlapping. So if you take the examples of our set S and T, this means that the element red, this element red is going to fall in the overlap of A and B, right? Because red is also in A and red is also in B, which means it's falling in this place, which is both A and B. But it's also only counted once. If we count it twice, which means the element will start repeating themselves. That's why we only count it once, even when you make a union in a mathematical way. Okay, so now let's move on to intersection. So intersection is that we will only count the elements which are common in both A and B. Like we have two sets.
Excuse me, sir.
Yes.
Can we use concatenation in set?
I don't think so, but I don't think so that we can use concatenation, but we should always experiment. So let's take, if we try to print S plus P, and let's see if this works. Nope, it doesn't work. See, the concatenation is an unsupported operation for sets, which means it doesn't work. Okay, so now we start with intersection. Intersection means that the elements which are common in S and in T, only those will get printed. So let's remove this union, and here I will type intersection. And PyCharm already filled it for me, and I will print this. As you can see, the only output here is red. That's because red is the only element that's repeating in both of those, in both the sets A, S, and T.
Yeah.
And here, if I add another element, let's say I add the element 2, okay? I will add the integer 2, and in this case, I should get red and 2 both as my output. So when I print this, you can see that's what we get. We get 2 and red both as our output.
Siddharth,
Yes.
can you just hang on for a while because it's lagging too much.
Okay.
Same.
Is it lagging for everybody?
Yes, sir.
Yes, it's
Yes,
like
sir.
Yes.
my side also too much. It's lagging. Do one thing. Just close some tabs that you have open.
Think I only have the essential tabs open. Like everything else is closed.
Okay. Okay, then while switching a tab, just wait for 2 to 3 seconds.
All right. Okay, so we are going to print s dot intersection t. Like we have already printed s dot intersection t, which means that we are going to be printing all the elements which are common in both the sets. And the common elements are the element red, which is here, and the number 2, which is here and here. And that's our output, which is 2 and red. There's another way to write the intersection. Let's go back to our presentation. And here you might be able to see that the another way to write intersection is using the AND operator, which is also called ampersand. And this is what we use to denote an intersection between A and B. And now we go back to our IDE. Okay, we are back here. And I will remove this intersection. Okay. And here, instead of writing intersection, I will just write S ampersand T. And let me remove the brackets also. And when I print this, the output is the same. It's 2 and red. So this is how intersection works. So any doubt in intersection? If anybody in case didn't understand how it works? Okay, nobody, I think. So let's move on to the next operation, which is difference. So I'll wait until the presentation. I'll wait a few seconds until the presentation loads. Okay, so there's two ways of writing a difference. First is you have, let's say you have two sets A and B, which I have used for the examples here. This means that I'm going to be writing A minus B, right? So the name of the function is difference, and that's why we can just write A minus B. So somebody just asked me if we can concatenate two sets, and says, but we cannot do that. As you also Python threw us an error, you cannot do A plus B, but you can do A minus B. That's because set supports the difference operation, the difference operator natively. And the other way of doing this is that you can just use the difference method, like A dot difference B. So let's take a look at how this works. I have my two elements here, which are S and T, right? So I will print S minus T, and when I print this, my output is false, 1, 8.4, blue, and green. So from my set S, what all has been deleted? What all has been removed from here? The elements which have been removed are, first, it is the number 2, and also the string red. What's happening here is that both of these, the red and 2 are common in both S and T. That's why they get removed from S. Since I'm doing S minus T, all the common elements will get removed from S, okay? And if I change this, if I do it T minus S, what's going to happen now is, when I print this, I get the output as yellow-orange, which means the elements red and 2 have been removed from T instead of getting removed from S. So this first set which you mentioned here is the one that gets printed. Okay, so if you are writing S minus T, then S will get printed. And if you are writing T minus S, then T will get printed. Okay, now let's take a look at our final operation, which is a systematic difference. So what a systematic difference is that you will take all the elements of A and you will also take all the elements of B, but you will leave out all of the elements which are both in A and B. Okay, all the elements which are common will not be counted, and except of them, every other element will get counted. So let's take a look at how this functions. I will stay in the presentation for now. So the character which you have to use for a systematic difference, it is the upwards arrow. It's the raised to the symbol, right? When you're writing, let's say you're writing 3 raised to the power 7, this is the character which you use. And similarly, if you want to do this using a method, you're going to be using the symmetric, not systematic, symmetric underscore difference, and inside the brackets you're going to write the second set. So we will go back to IDE and we will take a look at how this functions. If I'm going to print S raised to the power, okay, S raised to the power T. Okay, I will wait a few seconds in case it's loading for someone. Okay, and now we'll print this. So as you can see, I have printed all the elements both in S and in T, but the only elements that didn't get printed are the ones which were common in both S and T. Right? As we have seen in the last 3 operations, the elements which are common have played a large part in our description, right? So this is the main function of a set. Like let's say you are maintaining a database, right? Let's say you are working in a huge corporation which makes a database, and you're making a database of your customers. Okay, and let's say you made a customer list and your colleague also made a customer list, but it's mostly the same, but it's a little different. In that case, what we do is we can use a union function. Like you can use the union function on both of these databases, and you will get you can combine those, and all the elements which are repeating themselves which will get removed. So, and there are different cases for, but let's say you want to remove all of the customer which keeps signing up over and over. In that case, what you will do is you will use a symmetric difference, which means that the customers which are both in your and your colleagues database, they will get removed because they're signing up over and over using different IDs. So this is how the set function can work in a real life scenario. Like there are different usage, and you will come across them as you start making your projects. And for now, let's take a look at what's next. Okay, and here we have the built-in functions within a set. So these are all the functions which Python supports, which we can perform on a set. So we will not do all of them. Let's take a look at some of them. Okay. Yes.
Which other way can we print the systematic difference?
Yes. What about that?
Is it print S dot systematic?
No, it's symmetric. Yes, I will show you S dot symmetric difference, and inside the bracket I will write Okay, and when I print this, I get the same output, like the output is without the element red and without the element 2. Okay, so this is how we write it, S dot symmetric difference, and inside the brackets the second set, which is T in this case. All right. Okay, so now let's see some of the functions of set. And first we have the all function, which means that if all the elements in a set are true, then it will return us a value of true. Let's go back to our IDE and let's take a look at how this works. So we'll write S, let's say we print S dot all, okay? And PyCharm didn't give me a prompt for this, so let's see if there's a, okay, there's no error, so let's try to print this. Okay, so there is no method which is all. Okay, Parvez, can you again take a look? Maybe the documentation is outdated because I'm mirroring the latest version.
Which one? All?
Yep, for the s.all.
Wait.
Because it didn't throw me a warning, so I'm guessing that the syntax is correct, but the Python isn't accepting it. Okay, let's try it in a different way. Let's try it as a function, like print all of s. Let's see if this works. Okay, yeah, it's not a method, it's a function. Yep, the heading here is incorrect. So what's happening here is that if all the elements inside of that set are true, then the output will be true. But as you can see, this element here, this final element of the set S is false. That's why my output is false. So I'm printing all of S. But instead, if I remove S from here and if I print all of T instead of S, and now I print this, I will get my output as true, right? And that's happening because there is no element false within the T set, within the set which is named as T. So you might be thinking, what about the other element? Let's say red, green, blue, 1, 2, 8.4. What about these elements? Let's say, like, if an element just exists, is it counted as a true or as a false element? So the default is that it will be counted as true because let's say if an element exists, then Python will automatically take its Boolean as true. I mean, it's the element doesn't itself become a Boolean, but when it gets to functions such as using the all function here, in that case, it will consider it as the value of true. That's why we got the output as true in case when we were checking it for the set T. You see the elements such as yellow, red, and orange. All of these have the output of true. Okay, now let's take a look at some other functions. Let's take a look at the length function. Okay, let's say I want to print the length of P. Okay, and I will just print this. And the length of T is 4. Okay, I hope everyone can see the output here, which is 4. And even in the set, you can see the T has 4 elements, which are yellow, red, orange, and 2. There are 4 elements, which means the length of the set T is 4. And similarly, if I type out the length of S instead of T, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7 elements. So my output should be 7. And let's run this, and that is what we get as the output. The output is 7. All right. So now we can take okay. Do you want me to take any of these methods? Like, if you want, I can pick one of these, like instead of choosing them myself. Anyone? Like, if you let maybe the maximum or the minimum of the set.
Some, sir, some last one.
Last one is sum. Okay. Let's see how the sum function works because we have both numbers and strings in the set. So we are going to print sum of s, and when we print this, as you can see, there are some errors here. And that's because we have both strings and numbers in the set. So let's make a third set here. We'll make a set U, and we'll write U is equal to, and we will declare our set, and we can write 1, 2, 3, and maybe 7. Okay. And instead of printing of the sum of S, we can print the sum of U. And when we print this, we get the output as 30, which is the sum of these four numbers. 7 plus 3 is 10, and 10 plus 2 plus 1 is 30. So this sum function can only be used when your set contains numerical data types. It cannot be used when your set contains numbers and strings. But what happens when our what will happen when our set contains only strings? Let's take a look. I will just remove this number in from the t set, and I will write a function of the summation of t. And when we print it, let's see if it throws us an error. And yep, it still throws us an error. Yep, so we cannot get a summation of only strings either. Let me comment all of this out. And now we move on to tuples.
Excuse me, sir.
Yes.
How do we print this intersection of these three?
Okay, intersection of all of them.
Yes, sir.
Okay, let's take a look. Here, let me just add 2 here, so just so that we know there is an intersection. So we know the symbol for intersection was ampersand, right? So let's try this. We'll write S and T and U. So let's see when we will try to run this, and we get the output as 2. Right. So this is how you can take the intersection of all three of these sets. You can just write the ampersand symbol, and you can use them for all the names of the set.
Okay, sir. Thanks, sir.
Okay. Okay, and now we move on to tuple. And we have already studied this multiple times now. Maybe I think I think we have studied this 2 times. And so tuple is very simple. As you all know, yesterday we studied list. And tuple is almost exactly the same as list. The only difference being that you can change and edit the elements of a list while you cannot change the elements in a tuple. Like that's the difference between these two data types. Now let's take a look at the attributes of a tuple. So tuple is an ordered collection of some values, like some elements which can be of different data types. Tuples are ordered. Okay, so in set, as we saw, there is no first element, there's no last element, like the order can shuffle around and it will not have any change on this value of the set. But a tuple is ordered, like the first element will remain first and the last element will remain last. And the sequence of the elements, they tend to stay the same unless we try to change them. And you can use the index value of a tuple to access particular elements inside of the tuple. And a tuple can be used, as you all of you already know. Tuple can store any data type. It can store a string, a number, a float, anything basically. And a tuple is denoted using just the round brackets. In list we use square brackets, right? In tuple we just use round brackets, and we separate values using a comma. So we will take a look at what a singleton tuple is. Okay, we'll wait a few seconds so it loads for everybody. Okay, so now let's go back to our IDE. I will comment out all of this. Okay, and let's say we have our tuple, and I will name my tuple name as tuple1 is equal to round brackets. And let's say I only want my tuple to have one element. Okay, just one. So let's say I want my tuple to have an element of 4. Okay, and this is how we denote it. We write it inside the round brackets, right? And when I try to print the type of my, let's say, tuple1, and I will print this. And as you can see, the problem here is it's giving me a class of integer. So this variable tuple1 has a value of 4, and since 4 is an integer, see, Python doesn't know if I'm trying to enter just one number of it or if I'm trying to enter multiple numbers. So when I'm entering only one element, Python assumes that that's what I want. I only want to enter one element, and since that element is an integer, Python assumes that my variable tuple1 is an integer. But I don't want this to be an integer. I want this to be a tuple. In this case, what I will do is I will enter my number 4, and after this 4, I will enter just a comma. All right. So since I've added a comma, Python knows that it can expect more elements after this. Because that's how you separate elements, right? Inside a list, inside a dictionary, inside a set or a tuple, you separate elements using a comma. And since we have entered a comma here, Python knows that it can expect new elements to come. So when we print this, as you can see, the output has changed from integer to a tuple. Like now Python knows that if the tuple1 variable is a tuple and it's not an integer instead of a tuple. So this is how you can declare a tuple with only one element. Okay, you type your element and then you enter a comma, but after the comma you don't need to enter anything. Okay, and now let's now let's move forward. And we have two methods here of a tuple, which are count and index. So we have more already. We also have some more of them. All right. So first, let's take a look at count and index. Okay, let me just enter a few more elements here. 4, 5, 1, 2, and okay. I think this is enough. So what we are going to print is we are going to print the let's say we are going to print the index tuple1 dot index and inside the index we're going to enter the attribute of, let's say, 8. Okay. And when I print this, my output is 2. So my output is 2 because this element 8 occurs at the second position inside the array, right? This is the 0th element, this is the first element, and this is the second element. This is how the indexing method works for a tuple. Now let's get back to our presentation, and we have our second method, which is count, and the description of that is returns the count of a specified item in the tuple. Which means if you enter an element inside that method as an attribute, then that will return you how many times that element is repeating itself. So let's go back to our IDE, and here, if instead of writing tuple1.index, if I remove this and I write tuple1.count, what's going to happen is that I will get an output of 1. Let's try to print this, and I'm right. So the output is 1. That's because the number 8 is only appearing once in the tuple, right? It's only appearing once inside the tuple. But if I enter multiple 8 here, okay, I will write multiple 8. Now I have 4 8s in the inside of the tuple. And when I print this, I get the output as 4. So the count function, the count method just tells me how many times an element is repeating inside of a sequence. And if we move ahead, as you can see, all of these methods are the same as that of a set, right? They are the same for the set, for the tuple, and for the list. All of these methods will work for all of them. Okay. So we don't need this. So since we have already done this function for the set and the list yesterday, we don't need to overdo it. So, but before we move to the dictionary, let me take you to the resources of set. Okay, I have the today's resources, which I guess Parvez has already sent you in the WhatsApp. Parvez, have you sent all them already? This?
Yes, I've shared it.
Okay, so let's skip set for now and let's move on to tuple. Okay. Here I have tuple on page 7. Let me just zoom in a little. So as you can see here, if you want, you can open this document on your devices too, and I will give you a quick overview of what we have here. So here we have, let's say we have the definition of the tuple And then the how to create a tuple. This we have already done in this class. And then we have this singleton tuple, which we have done just now. And then we have the tuple constructor. We didn't do tuple constructor today, but we have done it in the past, and I think the last Sunday, I think. So what the tuple constructor does is that it will take a different sequence. Let's say you can convert a set into a tuple or a list into a tuple using the tuple converter. Like you can just take a different variable, and the variable can be of the type of a list, and you can just enter it inside of the tuple function. Let's say tuple brackets, and inside the bracket you can have your name of your list, and that list will be converted into a tuple. And there are nested tuples, which means a tuple inside of another tuple. That's also quite easy. And then there's indexing. As you can in the diagram, you can see here the first, second, third, and fourth element. Okay. And let's see what else do we have here. Okay, so let's take a look at what swapping is. Okay, how do we swap two numbers? I will comment this out. This is interesting because this will help you even in many other programming languages. Let's say I have my variable a is equal to 10. Okay, and I have my variable b is equal to 20. And I want to exchange, I want to flip these two values. Okay, I want to give a is equal to 20 and b is equal to 10. How will I do this? What's the way how can I swap these two values? Anybody? This is a fairly simple question.
In Python, you can write a comma b equal to b comma a. Then they will
Yep.
swap the values.
And what's the other way? What's the way in which you can do it in any programming language?
In any programming language, we have to have a third variable. Then,
yep.
Yeah, with the third
Using a
variable.
person.
Yep. So let's take a look at both of them. Okay. Let's take a variable c, and instead of just declaring c, we don't need to declare it separately in Python. So we will just start using it. Okay. So we'll write c. We'll take a third variable c, and we'll write c is equal to a. So now c has the value of 10, and then we can write a is equal to b, which means a now has the value of 20. Which means both a and b are equal to 20. But I want to change the value of b. So what I will do is I will write b is equal to c. And now when I let's say I print a comma b, I will print both of them. But I get the output is 20 comma 10, which means a's value has been changed from 10 to 20, and b's value has been changed from 20 to 10. And as he said, we can also do this using using another function which is very common in Python, which is a comma b is equal to b comma a. So this is a shortcut for swapping values in Python. We will print this, and our output is again, as you can see, 20 comma 10, which means the value of a and b has been swapped. So this was one interesting little trick which is given in your resource. Now we will go back and we will take a look at what some other given topics are. So yeah, there's then accessing the elements of a tuple. That's also the exactly same as that of a list. Like it's exactly the same. There's absolutely no difference. The indexing, like accessing the index from the positive side and from the negative side, it's the same. The only difference is that you cannot change one index at a time. And then there's the slicing. We also did slicing yesterday, right? So the syntax for slicing is also the same. And we have already done deletion also. And okay, let's we will just take yes.
Sir, about the swapping two values, I think there is a way of doing it also. When it's
Okay.
numerical values.
Okay, how do we do this?
We can put a is equals to a plus b.
Okay, a equal to a plus b, and
yes, b is equals to A minus B,
A minus B, okay.
and then A is equals to
What A is equal to?
A minus B.
A minus B. All right, let's take a look. We get 20 and 10. Yep, this works. Yep, you're right. This is also this is also where we can do this because the output is correct.
Yeah, but this one works only for numerical values.
Yep, that's true. Yep, since you're adding and subtracting. Okay, so now let's take another look at slicing. Okay, I will just take my set from here. I will copy paste this, and let's just take the set S. Okay, although we have done slicing yesterday too, but it's a little complicated topic and it's also a little bit important. So let's say I will print S. Okay, I will print my okay, this is a set, not a tuple. Okay, I will convert this into a tuple using round brackets. I will print S, and inside square brackets I can write my starting value. Let's say I will write my starting value 2 colon and the ending value 5. And when I print this, I get the output as blue 1 and 2. Because blue is the starting value at the second index, and 1 is the third index, and 2 is at the fourth index. This is how we can slice. We can select a portion within the set. Okay, any questions here? Do you want me to show you some other ways of doing this? Like some, do you want me to show more examples of slicing? Do you all understand it? Okay, anybody? Okay, so I'm assuming that you all understand how slicing works. So let me just comment this out and we will go back to a resource and let's take a look at. So there's defining the length of the tuple. We have already done that right now. You can just use the length variable, the length method, and inside the brackets, you can enter the name of your tuple. Okay, so all right, so I think that's the end of it. Now we will move on to dictionaries. Let me go back to my presentation. All right. So dictionaries might be the best part about Python. And that's because dictionaries are used almost everywhere. But the difference is that in other programming languages, you have to create your own dictionary. You have to specify your own data type, and you have to make your own structure, and then you have to create the syntax for your own dictionary, and then you can start using it. But in Python, you already have it natively. You can study it, you can perform operations on it, which also makes it very easy to learn. And you can then again in the future, if you switch to anything else, you can just use your use your learning, use your understanding from here, and you can apply it to your new projects. So let's take a look at what dictionaries are. So dictionaries are also a sequence of elements, but the difference is that each element doesn't have an index value. Okay, but there is no first element, there's no last element, there's no 13th element. There are many elements in a dictionary which are not in an ascending or a descending sequence. So how do we access those elements if we don't have we cannot access it using their index, since they don't have an index? So we access them using their key. Okay, so each element is what we call a value, and each value has a key. And a few classes ago, I gave the analogy of a lock. Okay, so let's say you have a lock and you have a key. So you will use the key to open the lock to access the door. Okay, to access opening the door. That's how a dictionary in Python also works. You will use your key to access the element inside of the dictionary. Okay, and if you take a look at this diagram here, I think you will be able to better understand this. Which are, so in the left side you have keys, and on the right side you have their values. You have a key which is called name, and the name is Bob, and you have a key which is age, and the value of the age is 25, which means that the age of Bob is 25. And if you try to read this, you will be able to identify other values too, such as the Bob is a developer who lives in New York, right? So this is how the key value pairs of a dictionary work. And any questions up till this point? Okay, no questions. Okay, let's move ahead and let's see how we create a dictionary. Okay, so the syntax of dictionary is that you use curly braces, the curly brackets or braces or brackets, you can call name it anything. And inside it, the keys will be denoted with quotes. And the values will also be denoted with quotes unless it's a number. If it's a string, it will be denoted with a quote. All right. Let's go to our IDE and let's type out the dictionary. Okay. Let's say my name of my dictionary is, I will keep it D as same as the example. And I have my curly braces now, and I will write, let's say, my first key will be name, colon, and now I will type my own name. Let's say I type set. And my second key might be age. Okay, I will type age as my key. And let's, as you can see, I'm separating the key value pair using a comma. Okay, so commas are used for separation at every step in Python. Now I'm going to type age, colon, and inside my age I can write a number 20. And I'm not using the quotes, the quotation marks on the number 20 because it's an integer. If I wanted to type 20 as a string, in that case I would have used quotation marks. And let's see, I do not have a working position as of now, so let's just skip that. And what else? Let's say city. Okay, and I will type another key, which is city. And in my colon, I will type quotes and I will type, let's say, Noida. So this is my dictionary. How do I know it's a dictionary? I can just type print. Can type the print type of dictionary. And I run this, and I can type class of dict, and dict stands for dictionary. Okay, so let's get back to our presentation and let's see how can we access the values of a dictionary. So whenever you're making a dictionary, it's assumed that you already have the keys. Okay, so let's say you're making a dictionary, and even if you are using the software or somebody else is using the software, or if you're using the software or if you are using somebody else's software, it is assumed that you already have all the keys that you need in a dictionary. That's why if you want to access a value of a dictionary, you can do that using the key. So let's take a look at how this works. And I will, instead of printing type of D, type of the D variable, I can type D. And inside square brackets, I can type name. Okay, and name is my key, which is my first key here. And I will print this, and I get my name here. Right. So this is how we can access it. And if I, instead of name, if I write city, and then I print this, I get Noida as the output. So this is how you can access values in a dictionary. Similarly, since now let's take a look at if we can remove the values of a dictionary, the values along with the key. Okay, it's not like the key will become empty. Let's take a look if the key becomes empty or if it has a value. Okay, we should always experiment before to enhance the learning. Okay, so we have two functions here. Okay, we can use the pop function and we can use the delete function. Okay, we will take a look at both of them. Let's say we are tapping D. Let's say we are going to print D dot pop brackets, and let's close the print bracket also. Okay, let's see if this works. Okay, and we will print this, and this threw us an error. So the reason we have an error is that until this point, Okay, until this point, when we studied sets, lists, and tuples, the pop function deleted the last element, right? But here the error is that the pop function wants at least one argument, which means that when you're trying to delete a dictionary, you have to enter which key value pair you want to delete. So everywhere else you can write a pop function without an argument, but in dictionary you have to send an argument. Okay, so let's do it. Let's send an argument, or let's say city. And when we print this, we printed d dot. Okay, so this didn't work. Let's say we will just d dot pop city, and then we will print our dictionary. Okay, no, this was okay. We popped our city key. Okay, we popped our key, which is of city, and then we printed our dictionary, which now the dictionary only contains name and age, which means that the city key value pair has been removed. Okay, both the key and the value have been removed, right? There's no empty key or an empty value remaining here. And the other way of doing this is, let's say if I don't want to pop it, let's say I want to just directly delete it. The other way of doing this is delete. And that's the function we use, right? The delete, we will use del. Del stands for delete, and then the name of our dictionary, and inside square brackets we can type the name. And so let's use it, del delete d, and inside square brackets let's just delete the name key. And now when we print this, as you can see, the name key value pair has been deleted, and we only have age and city left inside the dictionary. Okay, so this is how we can remove the elements in a dictionary in two methods, which are pop and delete. And unlike every other sequence, using the pop function in dictionary requires an argument. Like that's a necessity. Okay, so let's move ahead.
Excuse me, sir.
Yes.
Does it mean in dictionary the key is represented in single quote and the value is double quote?
No, not necessarily. Even you can even change the values to single quotes, and this will work. And you can change the key to double quotes, and this is perfectly fine. There's no difference between single and double quotes.
Okay.
Okay, like it's just better to maintain a format so that see, the reason I use different for the different codes for that is that it increases the readability of the code. Okay, so let's say I'm trying to, if I come back tomorrow and I try to read my same code, I will instantly start recognizing the pattern between the keys and the value. Like if it's a single quote, then it's a key. If it's a double quote, it's a value. I will not have to identify where there's a comma and where there's a colon. So using different types of quotation marks just helps with the readability of your program. Okay. And now we have the merging of two dictionaries. Okay, let's say you have a dictionary one named D1, and you have a second dictionary named D2. And you want to make a third dictionary which has both the elements of D1 and D2. Okay, so in that case, we use our update function. Okay, and let's see. Okay, we will. But there are different questions here, like what if there's a repeating key? Okay, let's say if there's a key name in both of these dictionaries, but they have different values, what will happen then? And if they have the same values, what will happen then? And let's see, if I don't use the update function, let's say if I use the concatenation function, in that case, what will happen? So we will take a look at everything. Okay, it's let's see, it's 12:09 now. So let's continue at 12:15. Okay, and at 12:15 we will take a look at how we can merge two dictionaries and how we can add elements to a dictionary and other functions. So for now, I will just stop sharing, and we will continue at 12:15. Then meanwhile, if you have any doubt, you can just unmute yourself and ask. Okay, so now let's see how we can merge two dictionaries. So first, let's go to our IDE, and here we already have a dictionary. So I will just change the name of the dictionary to D1, and I will write another dictionary which is D2. Okay, I will write D1. I've already had D1. I will write D2 is equal to, and here I will just take example from my presentation. So I have name, age, and job in the first, and age, city, and email in the second. All right. So I have name, age, and let's say I will just write change this to job here. Job, and let's change this to let's say software developer. And in D2, I will change this to, let's say age. Age is, let's say I will just write something, let's say 30. Age, and the second might be city. City, let's take Delhi for now. Let's age, city, and what else? And the third one, email. Okay. So if it's switching back and forth very rapidly, don't worry about it. Just pay attention on the IDE for now. Okay, and inside the third one, I can just write email. So email ID, and which will be equal to, let's say name at mail.com. Okay. So these are my two dictionaries. So as you can see, the element of age is common between two of them. So how we can merge these two dictionaries is that we can just write D1 dot update, and inside brackets we can write D2. Okay, and then we can print D1, and then we run this, and what happened was that we get a new dictionary, like the D1 has been updated to a bigger dictionary. Okay, and the bigger dictionary has all the elements which are in D1 and in D2. But let's take a look at what happened to the common element, which is age. So what happened here is that we have the element of age, which is both in D1 and in D2, but in the updated dictionary, it's only appearing once, right? And the value of that has been changed to 30. So this key value pair, okay, this key value pair, which is age 20, like the age is the key and 20 is the value, this one has disappeared. That's because we have updated it. Okay, the value of age earlier was 20, but then we updated it, and when we updated it, we changed it to 30. So that's what happens when you have the same key into different dictionaries. Like the value get updated, the value gets changed when you update the dictionary. That's why the value of age has been changed from 20 to 30 here. Okay, and what happens if we have the same value for them? Let's say if I change the value of age from 32 back to 20. In that case, when I run this, as you can see, age, the value of age here is still 20, right? Because the value of age in both dictionary 1 and in dictionary 2 both are the same, which is 20. And that's why we have 20 as our value here in the final dictionary, which is D1, because we have updated D1 with D2. Okay, so now let's go back to our presentation. And here we have some more methods, okay? And these methods are different from those of set, list, and tuples, right? As you can see, there is no maximum, there's no minimum, and like the functions are completely different. Like these functions you won't find there, like except for some of them you can, like the pop function is still here, but most of them are different for dictionary, because dictionary is a very unique kind of data type. So first, let's take a look at the clear method. Okay, let's get back to our IDE. And for now, I'm just going to remove this D2 dictionary. Okay, let's just work with D1. And what we're going to do is we are going to write D1 dot clear, and I'm going to print D1. And when I print this, I get an empty dictionary, right? You can see in the output that the dictionary is empty. So what's happening here is that I have my dictionary filled with different elements. right? I have three different elements in it, three different key value pairs, and I'm clearing all of them. I'm deleting all of them using the clear function. And that's why when I print out after clearing it, the output is as an empty dictionary. Okay, so now let's take a look at some of the other methods. Let's say if I use the copy method. Okay.
Excuse me, sir.
Yes.
When you say clear, d1.clear, are you still going to write print?
Can you repeat d1.clear after that?
When you say d1.clear, are you still going to write print d1?
Yep, I have to write print, because when I write this, when I write d1.clear, this is when my dictionary has been deleted. But how do I know that my dictionary has been deleted? I have to print my dictionary, right? Only then I will know if it has been deleted.
Okay.
Okay. So let's take a look at the second function, which is copy. And okay, so what the copy function does is that it returns a shallow copy of the dictionary. Okay, now let's see what a shallow copy is. Okay, what I will do is I will write d1 dot copy d2, and for that let me just declare d2 as an empty dictionary. Okay, and now my error has gone, and let me print d2, and let's see what the output is. I think we're going to come across an error, and that's right, we did. Okay, so okay, got it. So instead of writing d1.copy d2, what we have to write is d2 is equal to d1.copy. And let's see if this works. Okay, yep, this worked. What's happening? So what's happening here is we have our variable d2, and then we are taking the elements of d1, and then we are copying all of them into d2. Okay, so this is how the copy function works. So you might be thinking that why do we have to copy it? Like, what if we just instead of copying, what happens if I just write d2 is equal to d1? Okay, in that case, when I run it, the output is exactly the same, and the difference is that when we use the copy function, only the things which get copied are the shallow copies. Okay, in the presentation, it says it returns a shallow copy of the dictionary. So what's a shallow copy and what's a deep copy? The difference only comes across when we are working with a huge data sets, and since I don't have since I don't have that to show you right now, so for now, we are going to skip the concept of a shallow copy and a deep copy, and let's move on to let's say some of the other functions. Okay, so let's see. We will let's try the values method. Okay, let me just remove these two, and I'm going to be printing d2 dot values. Okay, and I will enter the brackets here. Okay, this is throwing me a warning. So instead of writing d2 dot values, I will write values of d1. Is this correct? Okay. Okay. To make a change. Okay. It will be d1 dot value because I don't have a variable named d2. Okay, that was the error. So when I print this, as you can see, it's only giving me the value, right? The said 20 software developer. It's only giving me the values of the dictionary instead of giving me both the key and the value. This is how the value function works. Okay, any questions for this? I hope you already I hope I don't need to repeat how the key value pair works. Okay, so let's move ahead to some different methods, which are, so we have quite a lot of them, and do we have more? Okay, we do have some more of them. Okay. So now let's take, since we checked it for values, now let's take a look at it for keys. Okay. So here we are, instead of printing d1.values, we are going to be printing d1.keys. And let's run this. And when I run this, I have my output, which is name, age, and job. Okay. So it's very similar to when we printed values in our last method. And when we print keys, only the keys which are name, age, and job, those got printed here. Okay. So this is how the keys method works. And let's take a look at some more of the methods, which are, let's say, well, okay, now we come to pop item. Okay, this is an interesting function. So for that, first let's remove the print function. What we're going to do is we get d1 dot pop item. Okay, and then we are going to print d1. Okay, and any ideas what's going to get printed here? Like what will happen when I print d1? Would anybody like to guess?
Name and age.
Okay, can you repeat that?
Last item gets removed and named age gets printed.
Okay, let's take a look what happens. Yep, you are absolutely correct. Only the name and the age get printed. Like this last element, this gets popped. So what's happening here is when we use the pop function, you remember we have to always, when we use the pop function in a dictionary, we had to send an attribute. We had to send an argument to, for which element we wanted to delete. Okay, if we use the pop function without anything, the Python was unable to recognize which element to delete. And as a as an update to that, okay. So the since I've already told you that inside a dictionary there is no first element, there's no last element. Okay, that's why the pop function didn't work. So what happened was after that, this consistently, like Python consistently gets updated, right? There's 3.9.5 right now. There will be 3.9.6 in a few weeks, maybe. So since Python gets updated, new features like these get added over time. Similarly, the pop function came first, and since everybody was used to removing the last element using the pop functions, and that didn't work for the dictionary, what the Python developer did was in the next update, they added the pop item function, which worked how pop function works for other sequences. So this is why the pop item function was added to the dictionary, and that just deletes the final element of the sequence. Now let's see. Let's just see some other. Let's see some other methods. We still have quite a lot of them, and we have seen pop. We have seen pop item. We have seen values update, copy, clear. We have seen keys and values, both of them. Let's see what happens when we print the items. Okay. Let me just remove this one. Let me remove the item which I've popped. And if I try to print d1 dot items, okay, and I will run this, and my output is I'm outputting the dictionary, but it's as you can see, the format of the dictionary is a little different, right? For example, let me just experiment something. I have an idea. Let me see if that idea is correct. Okay. Right. So what's happening here is, let me just print this again. Okay. So when we print the dictionary directly, let's say I will print d1 right here. Okay. So in the second line, we are printing the dictionary. And in the first line, we are printing the items of the dictionary. Right. So this is the difference. Like you can see in both the cases, all of the elements are getting printed. But the difference is that the way they are getting printed is different. Right. The data type here is dictionary. The data type here is dictionary items. And here we have name and the key and the value inside one tuple. And here we have age and the value of the age inside one tuple. And then we are closing it with a square bracket, which means it also has the elements of list. That doesn't mean that this is a tuple or a list. Okay, the data type is not of that, but you can you can deploy the functionalities of those data types onto the items of the dictionary. Okay, let's this was an interesting method. Okay, so let's move to the next slide, and here we have similar methods, similar method as that of the different data types, such as list, key, such as list, set, and tuple. And let's again take a look at them. Okay, we can just let's say let's say if I try to print the length of D1. Let's say I've got length and D1. Okay, how many? What do you think? Will the output be 3 or will it be 6? Like, what's the length of my dictionary? 3 or 6?
3. 3.
3.
3.
Okay, let's print this. And you're right, the output is 3 because we have 3 key value pairs. Okay, a key value pair counts as 1 length. That's why the output here is 3. And we have some more here. We have any, we have all, and we have sorted also. Okay, sorted, I don't think sorted will work here. When you sorted, the data type will change itself, and we don't want to change our data type when we are working on something. So let's see if the all function works for a dictionary. Okay, instead of, we are going to remove length and we're going to enter all, and let's see, we run this, and the output is true, which means that all of the elements inside the dictionary are true. Okay, so let's go to our resource. Okay. Okay, now we have the resource of a dictionary. In case the presentation is still lagging, you all can open the resource in your own devices and go to page 30. Okay, I will wait I will wait 10 seconds in case you're opening it, and then we will start from here. All right, so here we have dictionaries. This we have already seen how the key value pair works. Creating a dictionary, we have also seen using curly brackets, key and values separated by a comma, and a key value pair consisting of a colon. Okay, and here we have the dictionary constructor, which means you can change a list into a dictionary using, but you can only do it when the format of that list or the format of the tuple falls into the criteria of a dictionary. You cannot take any list, any kind of list, and convert it. Only special kinds of lists can be converted. Okay, and I want you all to experiment it. I want you all to see how that functions. Okay, another way to create a dictionary is that you can create the keys and values separately. You can have a separate list for key, and you can have a separate list for values, and then you can use the zip function. Okay, first you will enter keys comma values inside the bracket, then you will use the zip function on them, which means that they both have been connected, like each key has been connected to a value using their index, and then you can convert it to a dictionary. Okay, this is on page number 14. And let's move on. And yep, now we at the end of page 14, we get the properties of a dictionary, which are that all the keys must be unique. You cannot repeat a key in a dictionary, because that will throw you an error. Like you will not be able to program if you repeat your keys. And keys must be immutable, which means they cannot be changed. And the type of the value can be of any type. Okay, it can be a integer, float, string, complex number, anything basically. It can also be a nested dictionary. Okay, a dictionary within a dictionary. Like if you're confused how that works, is the same thing as we have already seen nested list. Okay, a list inside a list, and that's how a dictionary inside a dictionary also works. Like it looks complex, but when you start performing operations on it, it will work in a very simple way. And accessing dictionary items, you have already done this. we've all done this. We will just write the name of the dictionary in square brackets. Inside the square brackets, the name of the key that we want to access. And now we have all seen updating the values of a dictionary, but we haven't seen adding something to a dictionary. So let's quickly take a look at that. Okay, here I have a dictionary. Okay, and what I'm going to do is I will write D1, and inside let me just take a look at the syntax once again. Okay, I'll write D1 and then square brackets. Inside the square brackets, I will enter a key. Okay, and inside the key, let's say I add city, and I will write is equal to, and here I will write my city. Let's write Delhi, and now I'm going to print D1. Okay, and now when I print this, as you can see, this this key value pair, which is city is equal to Delhi, this has been added to the dictionary. This is so this is how you can add elements to a dictionary. Okay, the name of the dictionary square brackets key is equal to value. Okay, remember this format. Like it's already in your resources, and the resources are already in your WhatsApp group. Okay. So now we have already seen merging to dictionaries, removing items. All right. So okay, I think that's all of it. We have successfully completed all of the data types. Okay, so from next week we are going to be starting object-oriented programming. Okay, that's the most interesting part of programming ever. Before we start that, we still have a few minutes left, so I would like to introduce you to the other file. Okay, again, I will give you a few seconds to download this. So download the practice problem. I will go through what I will go through the question which have already been solved and the question which you have to solve. Okay, let me know if you have already downloaded it.
Excuse me, sir.
Yes.
Sir, can we write
Yes, sir.
two values in a single key?
I don't think so, but let's take a look. Okay, let's see what happens when I have here I have a name, okay, and I have a string. What happens if I try to write, let's say I try another string here, okay, and I will try, let's say I will write here Parvez, okay, I will write the name of Parvez, and let's see what happens when I try to print this. Okay, and as you can see what happened here, well, although I have one string here and I have one string here, okay, one string Sid and the other string is Parvez. What's happening here is when I try to run this, both of these string gets concatenated into one string. Okay, so even if you try to add multiple values inside one key, both of them will get added up and you will only end up with one value, which means that one key will only hold one value at a time. Okay.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Okay, so has everybody downloaded this problem practice document?
Yes, sir.
All right. So let's take a look at the first few questions at the questions at page 1 and 2. Those have already been solved. Okay, you have your questions here. You have the solution, and you also have the output. So for I hope all of you have already done this because these are very simple questions. Like these are extremely simple. All of you must be able to do it by now. So try to do this, and if you can, great. If you can't, just look at the solution and your output must match. Like don't hesitate at looking at the solution because that's also part of learning. If you have tried programming it for yourself and then you were unable to do it, like you should look at the output. Like you should look at the solution rather, not the output. And at page number 3, okay, at page number 3 is where we start at. It's where you have to solve your questions from. Okay, yesterday you didn't have any questions, and I said we will be giving you more questions today. And here we have questions for list, string, set, tuple, and dictionary. Okay, all of the sequential data types. The questions are relatively simple. Okay, you shouldn't have any trouble doing this. And if you have any trouble, you can ask for it in the group, or rather, you can ask for it in the Discord. Okay, so it's easier to stay online on the Discord because it has a better notification system. So if you haven't joined the Discord yet, join the Discord. The link will be in the WhatsApp. Either me or Parvez will send it shortly. And after you join it, you will have to select a role. role for the GitHub Students Club, select the role, and you will be able to access the text channel for our GitHub club. And there you can ask any questions, and all of us will be happy to help you. But if you don't want to join Discord, that's also perfectly fine. You can ask me. You can ask Ritik or Parvez or any of the coordinators, or you can even ask in the group, and we will help you solve these questions. Okay, so these are the questions. Yes.
Plus, just show them once where to select the GitHub Students Club, because most of the students didn't
All
select.
right. Yes. So let me just open my Discord. All right. Okay. Here is the Discord server for Technova. Okay. Here, as you can see, on the left-hand side, you can see there's a channel called Select Your Club. Okay. So go to this channel, select your club, and you can see this blue square right here. Okay. Can you see it? The blue colored square.
Yes.
Okay, so this is what you have to click at. Okay, when you click on this blue colored square here, you will be able to access the channel for GitHub Students Club. Okay, as soon as you select this, you will be able to access this channel. Let me select the channel for Student GitHub Club. And as you can see there, we are already having conversation regarding technical things. We have uploaded, like we are sending the list, but we sent the link for the third class which we uploaded. And as you can see, we were also discussing what binary trees are. We were discussing data structure. Like we keep talking about different topics, not just about Python. We keep talking about different technical domains here because many people can contribute here. So that's it. If you join here, if you even if you just read the chats, it will be beneficial for you, because if we learn anything new, I keep sharing studies, or I keep sharing new things which I learned here. It's really good. Like Discord is great. Okay, so now let's get back to our questions. And is there anybody left who hasn't made a GitHub account yet? If there's anybody, you can, if you please make a GitHub account. Okay, you have to solve all of these questions, and you have to add it to your repository. Okay. I hope you have to make your GitHub account, and inside the GitHub account, you have to make a repository named as, you can name it anything. You can name it Python, P2P, programming, Sharda, anything you want. Inside the dictionary, you have to upload Python files which contain the solution of all of these questions. Okay. At the end, we will be checking them, because we, in the end, even though these are P2P Python classes, we are officially the GitHub Club. And since we are GitHub Club, our focus still remains for maintaining GitHub. Okay, and that's why we want all of you to make your GitHub, make repositories, make your projects on it, upload solutions. And what happens is that when you upload files, okay, each file counts as one commit. So GitHub keeps a track of how many commits you do. Okay, when you go to your own GitHub profile, you will see a calendar. You will see a calendar below, and each day of a calendar is denoted by a green colored square. So that's how the GitHub keeps track of your profile. Okay, so when you open your profile, okay, and you see the calendar, and let's see the calendar is filled with dark green, light green, and it's filled with green squares, that means you are a very active programmer. So that really helps. It will help you get a job. It will help you boost your profile. It will help you with open source. Like the earlier you get started with GitHub, the better it will be. Because I was applying for some companies for internship this summer, and there were like 12 or 15 companies which didn't even ask me for my resume. They said, ask me for the link of my GitHub profile, and they're going to judge me just because of that. Okay, so they didn't even ask me for my resume. They didn't even ask me for my LinkedIn. They just asked me for my GitHub profile, and they said that we will look at a GitHub profile, and we will let you know if you are selected or not. So this is like the value of GitHub is like increasing very rapidly these days. So if you haven't started, get started now, because it's really time to get started. And that's all. I guess we have completed everything for today. So yep, thank you all for coming. Let me just turn off my screen sharing. And if you have any questions, you can ask me regarding Python, or even if you have any other question regarding let's say Git and GitHub or anything regarding internships or anything, you can ask me or Parvez, and even Rupinder is here today. Okay, so you can even ask him. Okay, so thank you everybody for coming.
Hey everyone. So how many of you were there in yesterday's session of DBMS and SQL, right? Can you please raise your hands, the people who were there yesterday in DBMS and that session, DBMS and MySQL actually. Okay, okay. Okay, people are raising hands slowly. Okay, great. So not much people, I guess. So yes, the people who don't know me, I am Rupinder. I am the president of Technical Society, Technova we have in Charta, under which all the clubs come. And I just wanted to say, Pravesh, do we have a feedback form here?
Yes, we do have a feedback form. I will share it in the group.
Exactly. So I request everybody to please fill that feedback form, because I will get to know what you people actually want and what we need to improve on these things, right? So just fill that feedback form very diligently, everyone. So I'll be able to know that what you people are like, what you people want actually, and what we need to improve on our side. So I have said it in yesterday's class, also in DBMS class. Anything you need, anything, any subject, any what we say, uh, any course or anything you want to learn, just let us know. Just let me know on anything, right? Write it in the feedback form. Ping me on my WhatsApp. If you don't have my WhatsApp number, I'll put in the chat. Meetings is only please, I guess I am not able to